All
right, welcome to the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show. We get it rolling after 49er football. Niners gagged this one away. Oh, my goodness. This was hard to watch. We'll talk about it right now. Here we go. Niners lose to the Seahawks. Rough game. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, on the Monterey Peninsula. Our good friend Anthony Catania is at 831-521-5264. And, of course, we're brought to you, this live stream sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. Download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners to get your first deposit matched up to $200. Everyone who does is automatically entered in to win the free signed Fred Warner jersey. We'll announce the winner at the end of November. All right, guys, this was ugly. 49ers had their chances in this game. And, they it's equal blame, right? Equal blame offensively and defensively. I mean, they had an opportunity offensively to put the game away. They couldn't do it. They could not put the game away offensively. They handed it back to their defense, and then Sorensen's defense couldn't stop Geno Smith at the end. And no answers at all as the Seahawks went right down the field and beat the 49ers 20-17. 49ers probably aren't going to make the playoffs. I mean, they're 5-5. They're 3-3 at home. They get Green Bay next week. It's going to be a very tough game. They get Buffalo the week after. That's going to be a very tough game. They still have a game with Detroit later this year. Detroit's rolling and playing amazing football. It just doesn't look like it's their year. It doesn't look like they're going to win anything. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. What do you guys think? Give me your guys' thoughts.
It was definitely a tough loss, but I think that they would be even more befuddled if they didn't know why they lost. These are fixable problems. I know we've been saying that for the whole season, but they really are. It comes down to execution. In this particular game, the onus was on the defense to make the quintessential play, and they didn't do it. It isn't like Geno Smith ran past somebody who had their back turned. It was a horrible defensive play. He ran towards the 49er defender, it happened to be Campbell, and then he ran by him. He took a horrible angle. And we've talked about Greenlaw being out the entire year, but that was not a hard play to make. That play should have been made. And, theoretically, the 49ers should have won the game with their defense. I don't think that they're out of the playoff picture. I think it's going to be hard. But now as a team, you got to go somewhere and steal a win. So they got to go to Green Bay, preferably, and win next week's game. I think they can do it.
I mean, just another collapse by the Niners. Just another terrible, terrible collapse. And it's just, I've never seen anything like this before. Like, I don't have the same amount of laps around the sun as you guys do, but I've never seen a team play this bad late in games where they have the game in their pocket and they just lose it. And it's like, it's truly becoming the identity of this team. Like, just how the special teams, it's like, oh, they had a couple bad plays, but they're not really a bad special teams. And then week after week after week, they make bad special teams plays. Same thing with this team in the fourth quarter. Like, how many times are we going to see this team just choke one away before it just becomes part of their identity?
The other thing, it's funny. I asked Sorensen Thursday. I'm like, hey, Nick, what's the plan to, ease off the load on Bosa and Floyd so that these guys get to January? And he's like, well, we'd like to give them a break, but we want to win the games. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? You just ran your star defensive end into the ground. Right. You didn't add a defensive end at the trade deadline. You don't have great depth there. You're playing him 86% of the snaps coming into this game. And guess what? He wore out. And so now it's like, you don't trust the other guys enough to put them out there in a rotation. Well, guess what? You're going to have to put them out there exclusively because you're not going to have Bosa next week in Green Bay, most likely. I mean, the way he walked up to that dais, I mean, he could barely get up those 3 steps. He could barely get down. This guy's going to be playing a week from now in Green Bay against offensive linemen. I don't see it, man. I don't see it. And wow, I mean, no blitzing on that no pressure, no nothing. Right. I mean, no mixing it up. Just, you let him run.
The one pressure they did get, it was Fred Warner blitzing, and you drop Devondre Campbell back in coverage, and then they throw towards Campbell. It's like, why I don't know. I don't get that decision to drop Campbell back in coverage in that situation. It's just, I thought that was questionable.
They're in trouble. They're in big trouble. Next week they go to Green Bay. And you think other teams know their offense? How about Robert Saleh being hired by Green Bay to be a specialist or consultant to Green Bay? I mean, how are the Niners going to score if they can't score on Seattle? Scoring in Green Bay, maybe inclement weather, who knows? The offense is very vanilla. The part that really irritated me today, guys, is I watched the game with my buddy Mark Graves. They bring in Mason. I said, oh, that's the way to do it. Give the ball to Mason and give McCaffrey a break. And what does Mason do? Runs up for like 8 yards. We never see him again. What the heck is going on? I mean, talk seriously. About running.
So you get
Bosa into the
McCaffrey
ground.
Back, and then you just ignore Mason. I mean, 1 touch for Mason last week, 2 touches for Mason this week. I mean, unbelievable. 6'5" a carry, and he only gets 2 touches. I mean, you talk about forgetting about your guy. And it's not like you got weapons everywhere. Ricky Pearsall is a rookie, and he can't get open right now. Why don't you put CMC and flex him outside and then put Mason and McCaffrey? I don't know. Maybe on the field. I don't know. Together.
Here's another problem with the offense, guys. They are without Juwan Jennings. They are.
It was amazing today.
Look, they're going to start double teaming Juwan because you can single coverage. You can go man to man on Debo. He can't get open. The only passes Debo gets open on are the ridiculous play at the end of the half and the ridiculous play with 12 seconds. What was that?
Well, he actually was open a couple of times, and Purdy missed him. On Purdy's pick, when he threw the ball over the middle, Debo was open out in the flat. I'm not saying he's a great player, but, I mean, he's open. I mean,
you're at the 30-yard line, though, with 12 seconds left. You got 1 timeout. You need 30 yards for a shot at a 50. You get to the 40, you're talking a 57, 58-yard field goal. That's doable for Moody. It's not likely, but it's doable. It puts you in position. And what do? You run a 3-yard pass over the middle to Debo. How about what I would have done was gone for like a 15-yard out, get out of bounds, and get to the 45. Now I need 15 more yards, and I can get over the middle and call my last timeout, and I'm in field goal range. He wastes what was that play with 12 seconds left?
This is not a good offensive team. They're just not. I mean, they're going to have to win some games by grinding it out and executing, and that's part of the problem. They don't execute. I mean, to have Geno Smith run the ball into the end zone for the winning score is ridiculous. And again, he did not run past somebody who had their back turned. He ran by somebody. He ran by Campbell. They were playing like some type of quadrant zone type defense where you covered an area. Fred Warner had center left. Campbell had center right. And plenty of green grass to attack Geno Smith and put him on the ground. And it didn't happen. His back wasn't turned. It was a horrible angle. You got to execute. That's why
they're wearing down, too. I mean, they're wearing down. Bosa's beat up. Kittle didn't play. Ayuk's done for the year. Fred Warner had 3 tackles today. 3. There's more people on this live stream than he had tackles. That's just
Your mic cut out.
everybody would point to something different. Do you look at this as more what the defense did or what the offense did? Because, I mean, the defense couldn't hold them at the end, but at the same time, they only gave up 20 points at home to Seattle. You score 17 in your backyard in good weather, on the West Coast against Seattle. I mean, I don't know that you can point the finger at the defense when you only score 17 points. I mean, it was, once again, it was very conservative early. Didn't he go for a punt early? And it was like, what the heck? Was he punting? They had 4th and 1 from their own 35. They punted. You don't
That
have
was
a
the
way
opening drive.
Yeah, you don't have a way to get a first down. You can't get 1 yard on 4th and 1 from the 35. Now, granted, you would have given them a short field at the beginning of the game, but that was, I thought, a little conservative. I know, they passed on 3rd and 3 to Jennings for 2 yards, and then they punted on 4th and 1. Just a very disappointing game. I mean, outside of Jennings, I thought it was a very forgettable offensive day. I mean, the offensive line, Brendel had a very costly holding penalty.
So did Banks.
Yeah.
So did Banks.
Wasn't a great performance. I mean, you get CMC back, but you just forget about Garendo and Mason altogether. And then, even though you've got this incredibly versatile weapon in CMC, where's the versatility to you put Debo in the backfield, who can't run anymore, but you don't put CMC out wide when you have extra running backs. I would do it 3-4 times a game just to get my best talent on the field. They have no creativity at all with their usage of McCaffrey. None.
Yeah, I mean, their offense was completely flat today. It's completely, besides Juwan Jennings just looking like, just putting the team on his back. On third down, the Niners were just chucking it to Juwan and saying, please save us. I don't really think the Niners receivers are really doing much. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is without fault. He definitely was not. It wasn't an A game from him. But Deebo Samuel at this point is just a name. Like, what is he doing out there? He's not separating. He's these end arounds are going for 2 yards a pop. Like, he's just a name out there right now. And
they're playing with 10 men. I'm telling you, man, Debo he's not a factor out there. He can't separate. Teams know that. They're going to give up, they can press him because he's not going to get past him. He doesn't have it's like he doesn't have the quickness, the moves. So how many balls did Debo catch downfield today? 0.
They had no chunk yardage plays. I mean, they for the most part they didn't have any explosives.
They had one
very weird game. Very weird game. The offensive line didn't look good. They couldn't open run lanes. This Seattle defense is not one of the better defenses in pro football. These guys cannot stop the run. And yet in this game they did. I'll say this, Seattle they had the first matchup, they had Jerome Baker and Terrell Dodson, and the Niners ran for 228. In this game, the Niners ran for 4.9 a carry and still lost.
Mm-hmm.
How do you run for almost 5 yards a carry and lose the game? They never covered Jackson Smith and Njigba. They really missed Mooney Ward badly in this game. I mean, I hate to say it. They really did. They missed Mooney Ward, who normally takes care of DK. DK caught 7 balls for 70 yards, and Jackson Smith and Njigba, they threw him 11 balls. He caught 10. So, I mean, they never stopped him at any point. And then their 2 young linebackers this time around, Ernest Jones, who came from Tennessee, the former Ram, and Tyrese Knight, the rookie from UTEP. Those guys combined for 23 tackles.
Yeah.
Those 2 guys. They couldn't run it. I mean, the Niners, the Niners did run it, actually. I shouldn't say they couldn't run it. They ran 21 times for they ran 27 times for 131. It's almost 5 yards a carry. Should they have devoted more to the run game? Should they have, Kyle loves offensive balance, and he had achieved offensive balance, 27 runs.
40 of them came from Purdy. So, I mean, if you take Purdy out of it, they ran for like 90.
5 of them, you mean? 5 of them came from Purdy. Yeah. So
40 yards. 40 yards.
Yeah, 40 yards. So he'd ran 5 times. So they ran 22 times and they threw it 28 times.
91 yards on the ground without taking out Purdy.
I don't know. It just seems like wasn't this a team that you could just run the ball on?
This was a bad defensive team. It's a really bad defensive team. The only thing I could chalk it up to, if you wanted to be super optimistic, is it's a division opponent. They know you. They're going to play you tough. But yeah, it wasn't a good look. On the defensive side though, just from I looked this up, Bosa, after he came off the field, the 49ers had only had held the Seahawks to 44 yards or less in every single drive. Once he came off the field, they allowed 2 drives. One was 70 yards, one was 80 yards, and 2 touchdowns on those drives. After Nick Bosa came out, it was a 14-7, or it was 14-7. Niners got outscored.
And people are asking him, "Oh, what does it feel like? Like what? He's not allowed to get hurt." This is on Sorensen. This is on the fact that Sorensen ran this guy into the fucking ground. There's just no way around it. I mean, come on, 86% of the snaps for Nick Bosa. He's never played more than 75% of the snaps in his career. He's playing 86%. When I ask him about it, he's like, "Well, you know what? We want to win the game." Well, you didn't win today.
Is that Larry? Is that on Sorensen or is that on the defensive line coach Kocurek, the rotation? Kocurek.
Well, I mean, the defense overall is the responsibility of the defensive coordinator.
Well, they have no one to rotate to. That's the problem.
They used to rotate all the time. Now they don't.
They badly needed help. I mean, I was pleading with them at the trade deadline. Get some defensive end help. You have nothing. Drake Jackson done for the year. Robert Beal, you don't trust him. You got Sam O, you got old Leonard Floyd, and you got beat up Nick Bosa, and they're like, we're good. We're good over here. You're not even going to make the playoffs.
I mean, if Yeturgos Matos didn't come back this week, we're talking about who's playing on the opposite side of Floyd. It's Okawanu and Beal, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
You got 3 guys rotating on the edge. I mean, yeah, they look at trading at the deadline as a luxury, but in this scenario, it was really a necessity. Like they needed to get something done, and now they're kind of paying the price for it because they have absolutely no one. And Bosa's concerned that he might miss a few weeks. So what do you do?
He's not playing. I'll tell you right now, he's not playing next week.
Mm-mm.
So this whole we don't need to spot him because we want to win. Well, you didn't win, and now you've lost him for the next probably month. So I mean, it's I don't know what they were thinking, and it's like I almost feel like like when you're talking to somebody and you're like, I'm clearly not talking to the man. That's what I feel like when I talk to Nick Sorensen. I feel like I'm talking to somebody who's, he's the front man for the man. You know what I mean? It's like, can I actually talk to somebody who has some ability to make a decision? Because obviously Nick doesn't. I mean, come on, man. You're just going to sit there and run your veteran defensive ends into the ground. Go get somebody. Go get some help. I mean, heck, Jason Pierre-Paul is out there. You couldn't get anybody. They couldn't add a single guy, and they're just going to keep running Nick out there. And it's like, and he's beat up, he's banged up. Last week against Baker Mayfield, they're doing a freaking waltz, on 4th down. It's the Foxtrot Rock or something. I don't know what the heck that was, but that wasn't a pass rusher rushing a quarterback. And it's like, was that not enough of an indication that you maybe need to ease off on the snap burden of Nick Bosa? No. I mean, that didn't come across. So, I mean, I can't even imagine where the Niners would have been in this game without Jennings. I mean, if Jennings doesn't catch 10 balls for 91 yards and a touchdown, they get smoked in this game. They do absolutely nothing at home. Nothing. I know the Pearsall story is nice, and it's an emotional story and this and that, but he, until proven otherwise, he's just a guy, and I don't want to hear about him. You know what I mean? It's like, don't tell me about Pearsall. Pearsall hasn't done anything. Cowing left this game with a concussion. You can't depend on rookie receivers. You can't. So
I think everybody knew when Kittle wasn't playing, though, they was gonna have a rough time. Kittle has been their best player this year.
Oh yeah, he's been the most consistent pass catcher.
He has. So when he was out of the lineup, I was like, okay, they're gonna struggle. Now the one point that Dan made, and I totally agree with you. Why Mason isn't getting more reps is befuddling to me. I have no idea why he's not playing. I mean, you look at McCaffrey's burst off the line of scrimmage, it's about 70% of what it normally is. The reason why he's doing okay is because he has great vision and he has quick feet. But that burst that we're used to seeing isn't there. But when they put Mason in on those 2 runs that he had, he was explosive up the line of scrimmage. We never saw him again.
Well, here's the other thing, Frank. Here's the other part of that. Shanahan and the offensive coaches are always talking about how, there's the presence of McCaffrey is almost like a Steph Curry kind of like presence on the rest of his teammates because he has such gravity and everything kind of tilts towards him. Well, great. Then flex him out, use him as a decoy, and get the ball to some of these other guys and let them pile up some yards and use him as a decoy a little bit. I didn't see any of that.
No,
how many times did they use him as a decoy and get the ball? I mean, Garendo's a game breaker. He doesn't even get the ball. He didn't even touch the ball.
It sounds crazy to say, but right now it feels like the 49ers offense has a lack of weapons. So if you have a lack of weapons, then you got to use all the weapons that you have at your disposal. Having Jordan Mason sit on the sideline when you could run 2 back sets just seems like a waste because Ricky Pearsall, there's not every player on this team is really pulling their own weight right now. And if you have a guy that can make plays sitting on the sideline, I mean, you're hurting yourself.
What happened to Chris Conley? How come he never plays?
He's hurt. He's hurt.
He's
right
hurt.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
but
I noticed
another guy that would help.
Seattle on that last drive was going, 4 receivers. They were going, 2 slots and then 2 wideouts on each side. They were going 4, single backfield with just Smith. Niners always seem to have to go with a tight end or fullback. They never go for wideouts. Rarely. And we rarely go 2, 3. It's usually just, now it's just Jennings and Debo. And then you got the fullback and then your tight end. Why do the Niners? I mean, today was a chance without Kittle, get some more receivers in there. I mean, you couldn't move the ball. You could. I mean, Seattle went down the field. You see when Bosa's out, and they got, with nobody in the backfield, it opens it up, and you saw that's what Geno was able to run for the touchdown, and he also ran earlier for the first down. Purdy can do that. Open the field up, like open it up like the Warriors, for shooters. Get more athletes out on the field. It's not hard when you don't have any. When you got one receiver that's kind of slow and it's just Jennings, he can get open because he's physical and he gets open in tight situations. But then Debo's your other wide receiver. It's not too easy. I mean, I shouldn't say easy. It's not that difficult to shut the 49ers offense down.
They're slow.
Exactly.
They're really, really slow. I mean,
Exactly.
It's a slow group of weapons. Jennings runs 4.7. Debo can't beat man coverage. Ayuk's done for the year. Pearsall is a rookie. Doesn't look like he's ready. Cowing is concussed and doesn't look like he's ready. Conley's hurt. They got no weapons. I mean, my God, flex out CMC and let's take a look at JP Mason or Garendo in the backfield. How do you have a game breaker like Garendo and not get him the ball? Thank you.
Larry, that's a real question, and Kyle Shanahan views himself, I think, obviously as a high level play caller. I'm sure he's kicking himself right now, not putting Mason and CMC on the field at the same time, because you're right. CMC basically could have been functioning today as a tight end because he's at his best when he's in space, not necessarily always running the football when he's in the condition that he's in now. And Mason didn't do anything not to be on the field today. He didn't. So you're right. And Dan's right. Put your best players on the field. And he didn't do that today.
The other one, but talk about a bad break too. So they have no Kittle and they have no blocking tight end other than Sauerbert. So I don't know if you guys heard this, but Sauerbert showed up at the stadium today ill. So they needed him. I mean, I talked about him in the pregame. They needed Sauerbert to have like the game of his life, and he was gutting it out ill. So, I mean, it's like, you look around that locker room, you got Tongas, receiving tight end, no impact. Braden Willis, receiving tight end, no impact. You can't have a bunch of guys on your roster who don't do anything. They've got a bunch of guys on their roster that don't do anything. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's, you look at Detroit. I mean, my God, Detroit they lost Aiden Hutchinson, and it's like it doesn't matter. The Niners lose Nick Bosa, and suddenly it was like they were totally a different defense the rest of the game. So it's, they're I hate to bring this up because I brought it up a couple weeks ago, and it's true. It's true then. It's true now. The Niners missed on 7 number ones in this regime, and then they sold out for Hargrave, and the combination of depleting your depth for one free agent and missing on 7 number 1 picks has caught up with them. They're not as deep as they need to be. And so, it's fine if all of a sudden you have a normal number of injuries, but then suddenly your key guys start getting hurt, like Bosa and Kittle, and you don't have a 3rd round pick that you like at tight end who's going to be really your tight end of the future who you can put on the field. No, you got Braden Willis and you got Tongus and you got these donkeys, and it's like, you know what? You're not winning with that. So that's what happens. It was the pursuit of Hargrave on the tail end of missing on 7 number ones was ill advised. And it's now created a situation where they're so thin that they can't really, put together a reasonable, facsimile of what they were. And so now it's like a team with a bunch of big names. It ain't that good. This team, let's just be honest about this. It's a 500 freaking football team. It's almost Thanksgiving. You are what you are. We can talk about, what they are and what they want to be and this and that. Bosa said, hey, if we can just get into the playoffs, anything can happen. But can they get in? I mean, can they get in at this point? I mean, can they outrun Arizona and Seattle and the Rams in the division and get in? I mean, I agree with them. If they could get in, anything could happen. I don't think any of these teams are that big of world beaters, but I don't think the Niners are getting in.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I don't know if they're not going to get in, but it's definitely close.
It'll take a huge run to get in.
Definitely close. I was telling Red in the beginning of the show. This is what they call in Red Zone. They call this the witching hour. The Niners are in the witching hour, and we're halfway through the season right now. So it's like it's win or die right now for the 49ers, and it's a lot earlier than you would have expected.
Don't you steal from Scott Hansen?
I still stole from Scott Hansen. I don't even care.
I think they are going to get in. I do.
You think they're going to get in?
I do.
Okay, so wait a second. They would have to. They've lost 3 games in the division.
Mm-hmm.
They've won 1, right?
Right.
Is that right? They're 1-3 in the division. So that means they're probably going to have to outrun. They're going to have to be better. They're going to have to beat the Cardinals in week 18 for sure.
Yep.
And then they're going to have to tie them. Or Kev, are they going to have to beat the Cardinals to get in? As far as not in the game. I mean, are they going to have a better record than the Cardinals to get in? Are the Cardinals going to win the tiebreaker?
Cardinals are 2-0 in the division.
If the
Niners are 1-3.
But I mean, is that the tiebreaker?
If the first tiebreaker is division record.
Yeah. So
if you split,
wouldn't
the first tiebreaker be head to head? No.
Yes, it'd be head to head, but if
the Niners have to beat them,
you have to beat them.
And you're saying
Cardinals need to lose more games to division opponents.
Yeah,
and if they tie, then it goes conference record.
People are saying Niners aren't getting in. Stuart B not getting in.
Their best shot might be the 3rd wild card.
I mean, I think here's the deal. There isn't a team in their division that they can't beat. Now, they got to go beat these teams. Now, if they lose to Green Bay and Detroit, they're toast. They need to win one of those games. The likelihood of them beating Detroit is highly unlikely. But Green Bay beat Chicago by what, 1 point today? I mean, these are not world beaters. They're playing them at home. They need to play a complete football game. When I look at the personnel, I see a path to that happening. Will they be favored? Hell no. But they got to go play. I'm not going to just give up on them and say they can't play better football because they've lost these games. It isn't like these teams have just like kicked their ass. No, they lost. They lost today's game. I don't think Seattle beat them. I think they lost today's game.
I think there's a lot of advanced statistics out there that will tell you that this team's a really, really good team. And I'm guilty of using those statistics myself. I'll put them out there. I'll read them. I'll believe them. But at some point in this season, I think we got to look at this team for what they're actually putting on tape, what they're actually doing, what the actual outcomes of these games. And right now it's 500. So something's got to change. Something's got to change. They got to change about something about how the way they're finishing these games. They got to make changes on defense. I don't know, but it's coming down to it right now.
Wait a second. I got a text. I got a text here. It says they looked a little low energy. Signed Mike Tyson. So Tyson just sent me a thing saying they looked low energy. And if Tyson's saying they looked low energy, I mean that's low energy because he was pretty low energy.
You guys want to hear? You guys want to hear a crazy stat? This is from Josh Dubow from the AP.
How dare you call Dubow?
Dubow. The 49ers are the first team since 2000 to lose 3 division games. They led by 4+ points in the fourth quarter. The Cowboys and Patriots both did it in 2000.
So you're saying the Niners gag in the division in the fourth quarter?
Yeah. First team since 2000 to lose 3 games that they led by 4+ points in the fourth quarter. We're also only in week, what is it? Like 11, 10?
11.
James Frost is like, it's ridiculous. Admit Kyle is weak. Come on, man. Hey, seriously, I personally, if I really felt like it was coaching, I'd say it. I think it's personnel. I don't think they got the horses, man. I'm looking at Detroit. Detroit's got speed, Jameson Williams and speed and Jahmyr Gibbs and great offensive line and all kinds of weapons and a killer D and a bunch of DB. I mean, Detroit looks like a monster. The Niners look like they've got some big name guys, and then the bottom half of the roster looks like they almost can't be trusted, can't be played. It's they're really, really thin. They're really, really thin. I mean, they had injuries, sure, but they haven't had every team in the league's got injuries. The Ravens played today with no Kyle Hamilton. It happens. There's all kinds of guys out around the league.
Yeah, the Lions were missing Sam Laporta today. Do you think that mattered to them? They scored
52 on board.
Larry, do you really think it's the personnel and not the
I do. I don't think it's you said to me if is it more Shanahan or more like why don't we just throw that out? Is it more Shanahan or is it more the personnel? I think it's the more the personnel. Their offensive line's pretty weak. Brendel's a street free agent. He ranked 36 out of 36 centers in PFF and pass blocking grades coming into this thing, and then he had a key holding penalty. So he's replacement level at center. So you don't have a stellar offensive line. You're one deep at tight end. The rest of those guys are just guys. Mm-hmm. You have no speed at wide receiver. You got a great player in McCaffrey at running back, and you got some good backups. But McCaffrey's missed a good portion of the year. Purdy gets talked about a lot, but he's probably the strength of the team. The D line, they used to be 2 D lines. They used to have 2 whole different D lines. Now they have 1 D line. They're playing Bosa and Floyd way more snaps than they should, and now they're breaking down. Devondre Campbell is nowhere close to Dre Greenlaw. He had a couple good weeks against teams that had slowish backs. You put him in there against a real back today, and he looks slow. They don't have a free safety. They didn't have Mooney today, and they're a circus on special teams. Other than that, I mean, it's the 85 Bears on defense and the 94 Niners on offense. I mean, they're awesome outside of all those problems. I mean, it just seems like everything's starting to mount, and now they need a dominant finish, and it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to muster a dominant finish, does it?
I mean, you look at the Niners, though, you talk about personnel versus coaching. In 17 and 18, we know they didn't have the personnel. They were 10 and 22 in Kyle's first 2 years. You get the personnel. It's the same for the most part without Ayuk this year, but pretty close to the same personnel as they went to the Super Bowl last year. So where do you – at some point you got to say coaching whether it's can't be just all Kyle. It's his staff, but is it his leadership? I mean, I think Sorensen's defense looks as vanilla as I've ever seen a defense. It looks like a high school defense out there. I mean, I don't see any creativity. I see very little blitzing. I see very little pressure, especially when Bosa gets out. Get a little creative. What are you just going to let Geno Smith pick apart the defense down the field because you're rushing 4 guys that aren't even getting close to him? You got to do something with coaching. And then you got Shanahan just running CMC into the ground. He's not playing Mason. That's got to be a little bit on Kyle. Why isn't he playing Mason? Why isn't he moving? Get creative. Like I said, put CMC in the slot. You have no receiver. CMC runs your best routes of any player you have. Get a little creative. Bill Johnson does it with Detroit. I mean, Bill Johnson smacks teams and doesn't let off the gas. Him and Dan Campbell.
You talking about Ben Johnson?
I mean, yeah, Ben Johnson. He smacks teams in the mouth, and I think he's gonna. I think unless
let's talk about that though. They've got the best line in football. The Niners don't. They've got an array of weapons that are all fantastic and in their prime. The Niners had Ayuk after the holdout. Debo is, big name, no game. Doesn't separate against man coverage. Kittle's 30, probably played his best ball. Mm-hmm. They have no backup at tight end. They drafted a first-round receiver. He played the entire game. He couldn't get open to save his life. Ricky Pearsall was a 0 today, 0. And he played the entire game. So I think
on
Shanahan? I mean, it's on Shanahan. They picked him. I don't know if it's
I think the whole organization made a huge mistake in the offseason. They had a good
draft.
No, I'm talking about letting Ayuk run the narrative with the whole holdout, letting Trent Williams hold out, not taking it serious. They think, we're just coasting in. I mean, the whole Ayuk thing.
It's not a given that if you have a good coach, you're going to have a good team. It's just not. And right now the Niners are struggling in a multitude of areas.
Do you think it's coaching?
No, I don't think it's coaching. I mean, I think
we've got this one on here,
coaching,
Kev.
But it's not only. It's only not only.
I think it's a combination of everything.
Yeah, I
really do.
We have this guy Ernberg says it's coaching. He's like, Larry, come on, it's coaching.
I mean, somebody.
Oh, go ahead.
No. Somebody in the chat said Red's cool, but he doesn't get 49 football. You got to understand. I'm looking at it. I'm always going to look at it from a player's perspective. All right. And when I look at it listen, these guys are all pros. I mean, just like Dan said, Sorensen, I'm watching. They clearly wasn't getting pressure on Geno. Why not blitz? Why not do it? Because you don't want to give up a gaping hole and have people blame you. You got to be more creative. The first half, Seattle was a more physical football team. I said to myself, damn, Seattle is pushing the 49ers around. That can't happen. That has nothing to do with running and catching the football. That's mano and mano saying, you know what, I'm going to kick your ass from the other side of the line of scrimmage. And
they were coming off the bye, though. See, I mean, I think that's the other factor here. I mean, not to interrupt you, Fred, but I felt like Seattle was more energetic in this game.
Yeah, they were.
But they're coming off their bye week.
Okay.
This is the third team the 49ers have played coming off their bye week. They're playing Buffalo in a couple weeks. Buffalo will be coming off their bye week.
Yeah, what's going on with
There's
that?
no other team in the NFL that is playing more than 2 games all year. This guy's like, cut the excuses. It's not an excuse. It's real. That is not an excuse. That's a real deal. The Niners play 4 games against teams coming off their bye. There's no team in the league that plays more than 2. How's that equitable? I'm not saying it's the reason they lost today. I'm just saying that is the reason that I think they looked a whole lot more juicy, a whole lot more energetic than the Niners.
Here's my problem with Kyle in this. And you could say coaching, it's not his coaching. He's really great with X's and O's, and he does creative things, but he is getting a little vanilla. But how about this? His biggest problem, in my opinion, is his stubbornness, because he has refused to upgrade the offensive line, and he thinks he's too good. He thinks, I can get by with average offensive linemen because I can scheme up things. And you know what? you need an offensive line, okay? Because if you have the offensive line, you can run the ball, you can play smash mouth football, you get your quarterback more time to throw, because you need a lot more time to throw when you don't have receivers that can separate, okay? If you got quick receivers and get open, then you get by maybe with an offensive line that doesn't hold them as much, because that split second, the receiver's open. But the Niners have zero separation. I'm sorry. Debo is a shell of himself. The Niners would be foolish not if they don't cut him after this season, because to bring him back is just a waste. You have no Ayuk next year. You got to get some receivers that have some stinking speed and have some moves. This is ridiculous. I mean, Debo, I'm telling you, you're playing with 10 and a half guys out there. I hate to say it, because Debo he looks washed. He looks washed.
He does. They've got some holes. I mean, I think criticizing Kyle is fair. Because I think there are some things. I think he is getting pretty stubborn. I mean, what you have 3 pretty good running backs that are all pretty young and explosive, and you're running out of receivers. But instead of putting McCaffrey at receiver and getting one more guy on the field, he just keeps putting Christian at running back and going with Ronnie Bell and Chris Conley and backup guys and Ricky Pearsall. And it's like, you know what? Those guys can't get open. They cannot get open. So it's like, why don't you put McCaffrey, flex him out, and let's see what it looks like. And it's like, how many weeks do you have to sit there and look bad offensively before you go, maybe we ought to switch it up. Yeah. And I agree. Maybe it's time to invest in the offensive line.
If I was gonna be critical of Shanahan, I would be critical of him saying that he's not adapting well to his situation. It's like he referred to CMC in an interview with Greg Papa before the game as his blankie. Like he was joking. He's saying, "Oh, it's like having my blankie out there because I can call the plays and I can feel good about this and that." It's like it's not. So it's great that Kyle feels great about his plays, but if the plays aren't working and your offensive weapons aren't working for you, you got to adapt. You got to adapt, and that's what I'd be critical of him. Is he's not adapting to the reality of what the Niners are facing right now with their offensive weapons, with Debo being nothing. And going back to Dan's point, like I agree with you, Dan, that the offensive line.
You agree with Dan? Mm-hmm. This segment where Kev agrees with Dan is brought to you by Better, sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. It's not often, folks, that people agree with Dan Coach Amelia, but when it happens, we have a sponsor ready to sponsor that segment. And today, this agreement with Dan Coach Amelia is sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Thank you, Dan.
Well,
from all the good people at Better.
I wasn't even going to fully agree. I was going to say I agree, but
take that sponsorship back.
Better has canceled the sponsorship with Dan Coach Amelia.
No, I was going to say I agree, Dan. Like the offensive line is an issue, but when you're building a team in the NFL, like you can only pick so many positions that you're gonna draft for, right? You only have so many picks. And it just feels like the positions that the Niners have decided to pay big on, to spend a ton of money on, to put out a lot of draft capital towards, aren't producing for them. So it's just like a net negative. They're not willing to spend on the offensive line, and they're willing to spend on defensive line, but their defensive line is thin as shit. And they're willing to spend on their skill positions and their wide receivers, but right now no one can separate for damn shit. So it's like it's just a shit show. I think it's a shit show right now.
How long is Kittle going to be out? Is he going to play next week?
It's a good question. It's a hamstring.
Yeah,
I would think he would, since he was game time decision this week.
Yeah,
I mean,
this
they
guy
can't win without him.
Give Pearsall a break. Yeah, but I mean, I'll give him a break. But here's the bottom line. I mean, we can give him a break. You're right. He was shot in August and this and that. But how about this? Stop relying on him. Stop relying on him. It's like
they don't have an option.
How about maybe the head coach should give him a break?
Do we know? I mean, were you watching it?
You can't get open.
You were there. Could you see he wasn't getting open? Because they don't show it on the TV screen.
I mean, I watched him. I didn't see him open. I watched 5 or 6 routes and I didn't see him open. Doesn't mean he wasn't. Yeah. Let's hit some of these supers because they're backing up on us.
Yeah.
We don't want to go crazy here. Fuji Simeon says, hopefully Bosa oblique isn't too serious. I just saw him. It looked pretty serious. I mean, he couldn't walk. He could barely walk. Fuji Simeon says, Larry, is Sorensen looking like a one and done defensive coordinator? If we're lucky, I think would be the answer to that. James Makastad, do you think anyone told Debo to lock in? Yeah, seriously, that would be awesome. You walk up to him at his locker. Hey, Debo, lock in, bro.
Hey, Debo, that one carry for negative one yards. What were you doing there? Lock in.
Yeah, seriously, lock in, bro. Big Hurt says, I finally caught a live show. Huge fan. I never thought I would be here. It's time for Kyle to go, or Lynch needs to strip duties from him. He is damaged goods.
They need an offensive coordinator. They do.
What is the solution? If I had to say what the solution is, God, I'd have to. It's gonna take me. I need 24 hours to get a solution. I'll have it tomorrow night on Niners Nightly. I don't know if I have it now. Fuji Simeon says, Larry, the offensive penalties hurt first and long. Shaking my head. Yeah, the penalties. I mean, Shanahan said it in the post game.
9 penalties for 54 yards.
Yeah, and not only that, the Niners had 51 coming in. The Seahawks had 74. They were third in the league, and sure enough, in this game, it didn't show itself. Daza says, realistically, what game are we confident winning the rest of the season? Yeah, there is no game. That's the point. That's why they're cooked, because they don't have there's no Carolina Panthers. That was the beginning of the schedule. They have nobody. There's no Raiders. There's no Carolina Panthers. There's not one of these little sisters of the poor teams that's just sitting there. The Seattle Seahawks were it, and they couldn't beat them today at home. Fuji Simeon says, JJ, 2 years, $9 million is a steal. Most effective 49er wide receiver. He's a gamer. He's a dog. I mean, the guy shows up. He didn't even want to talk about, this is the second time he didn't want to talk after the game. Niner PR, you could see trying to get him to talk. He didn't want to talk. He's like, I got nothing to say, because he doesn't want to talk after. And I admire that. The guys I don't admire would be like LeBron, when LeBron, plays badly in a game and then begs out because he doesn't want to answer the music. This is a guy who didn't want to talk after he played awesome, because he knows it's going to all be about him, questions about him, and he doesn't want to talk about himself. So he just said, you know what? I don't want to talk. 49er Jeff says, the league caught up to Kyle, plain and simple. Do you guys believe that's the truth? Did the league catch up to Shanahan?
They're catching up to him. They are.
Well, here's
I think there's something to say for the fact that if someone copies your offense, like all of his coaching, this coaching tree going and starting offenses other places, it forces defensive coordinators to scheme against basically your offense multiple times a year. And I just think that repetition might cause you to, have less success if you're not unique anymore.
Have you seen the tweet by Kurt Benkert, former quarterback in the NFL?
No, what's Kurt saying?
He says the 49er offense doesn't adjust protections. They just throw hot. Other teams know this and can force their hand in critical situations, just like we saw in the Super Bowl last year. It's mind-blowing stuff that a simple flipper would fix.
A simple flipper?
Yep.
What's a flipper?
This play right here says Purdy forced to throw hot on 3rd and 11 when a first could have iced the game.
He had no. Well, I mean, I don't care what his choices were here. He had no time. Look at he's got a free runner coming at him. Guy's in his lap right now.
So the argument he's making is that he should be able to call his own protections so that this wouldn't happen.
Shanahan made it seem like it's built into the play and that it's covered, and that he's simplifying things for the quarterback. I don't know. It's like, it's a little different. I mean, football evolves. They used to use hand signals. They don't do that now. Shanahan made it seem like he's got built-in protections on every play.
He also says if there is a clear and easy answer, why not empower your quarterback to get you in the best protection? This stems back to Shanahan's history as a receiver, in my opinion, instead of from seeing it through the lens of a quarterback.
Interesting. Niner Matt says this one is on Kyle. Is today's loss on Kyle? I don't know. To me, it's on. I mean, everything's on Kyle because he's the head coach of the team. But I thought the defense. There's no. The 49er offense couldn't get it moving in that final drive, but there's no rule that says you then have to allow Geno Smith and a pretty mediocre offense to move all the way down the field, and that's what they did.
That's my point. I mean, think of the number of teams in the NFL that win games on defense, that stop the opposition from scoring in the most critical situations. I mean, I was disappointed more in the defense today because offensively, some of the best weapons are not there. I mean, Kittle has played the best among their wide receivers this year. I mean, Jennings is great when he's been healthy. CMC hasn't been there. I mean, defense is where I think that they could have won this game today, and they didn't do it.
I think there's something to be said for, playing how you play when it matters most. And it doesn't really matter how you play. Like, it doesn't really matter what your stats say at the end of the game as much as what was the outcome.
I totally agree with that. I mean,
and it's like everyone wants to say that the Chiefs aren't very good or like because of their stats, but they're obviously winning games. And this Niners defense, yeah, they played really well today. But in all these other games, and including today, when it mattered most, they couldn't get a stop to save their life. So what does that say about the defense? Does that mean they're a good defense? Does that mean they're a good defense because they're statistically a good defense? No. Whatever happens is the reality, and the reality is when the game's on the line, the Niners defense does not stand. It just hasn't.
I'll go further than that. When the Niners have to run, they can't run. When they have to get a first down in the fourth quarter, their offense bogs down. Their offense bogs down a lot in big games in the second half.
Well,
we welcome in John Dickinson.
What's up,
JD?
JD,
What's going on, JD?
Hey, JD.
Let me read a couple of these supers and we'll get JD's thoughts on this thing. Anthony Catania says, for once, I would like to hear Kyle take accountability for a loss. Yeah, accountability, he's not big on, it was on me, that's for sure. HR says, Shanny has a brawny level feel for the game. I don't think that's considered to be a high level. I think that's considered to be a low level. The big 25 says, not saying Shanahan needs to be fired, but changes need to be made. Hire an OC to do play calling and let Shanahan continue to design the plays for starters and accountability. They need more accountability.
Well, we talk about these different changes that need to be made, and we look at other organizations. You saw the Chiefs, what they did a few years ago. They let Tyreek Hill walk, basically, traded him to Miami to get rid of him. Buffalo last year let Stephon Diggs leave, and they get Keon Coleman, who hasn't done great things, but he actually has 3 TD passes to Debo's only 2 this year. But the teams that they're not stuck on their stars. The Niners seem to not only keep their stars, they sign them to these big contracts, and they're afraid to move off of guys that have had success. And the time to move off sometimes guys that have success is when they are at their height, their peak, because you get a lot more value for them. It's called, buy low, sell high. Niners like to hang on to their guys, and Debo is a shell of himself. And next year, they're probably going to end up letting him walk because it won't cost them that much. But if they keep him, they're going to have another down year because they're not going to have any receivers again.
I don't know about selling high. I mean, it's just what most football teams don't wind up doing a lot of selling. Period. Just keep.
Well, when guys
drafting
want to
well.
leave, you could have got rid of Ayuk and got some picks.
Yeah,
this
but I'm
year.
just saying it's like, is that going to make you a better football team? I mean, you have to just keep drafting. You have to keep drafting well, and they've missed on a lot of draft picks. I mean, yeah, they hit on this year's draft, but what that also hides is the fact that they've bombed in the last couple of years for the most part. Two more, and then we'll get JD in here. We've got Fuji Siemens says not having Dre Greenlaw hurt. Healthy Dre Greenlaw would stop Geno. And we got this one from Bill Conity. Mason should be grinding up yards and time on the last drive. Isn't that obvious? Yeah, I mean, yeah, they went to McCaffrey. I mean, it was McCaffrey on that last drive. They couldn't get a first down. They couldn't finish the game. And Xavier says Yadam sucks. He did get an interception. He says, I don't know why he keeps seeing play time. Every game, big plays are made on him. Demo had arguably the worst game of his career too. They missed Mooney today, and they were forced to play Yadam. We welcome in JD. JD, give us your takeaway from this one. Obviously, a very frustrating loss. Niners lose 20-17. They only scored 17 at home, which you got to put that on the offense. But then the defense couldn't stop them when it mattered. Give me your takeaway on this thing. Who do you blame the most for this Niner loss? Do I not hear JD?
Oh, that's on me. Sorry about that. That's on me. See, I can have accountability right out of the chute. That's on me. I muted myself, and now I unmuted myself. Thanks for having me. No, I think I put it on the offense. To me, 17 points against a Seahawks team that is as depleted as they were, and they're switching out linebackers and they're cutting people and they're changing up things. To me, I put it on the offense. You have to be able to put up closer to 30 points. I think the defense up until the final series did their job. 13 points. And they even got the big stop on the turnover on downs to give the ball back to the offense, where you basically have to pick up a couple of first downs. So overall, I just put it on the offense in terms of, and really the passing offense. Aside from what Jawan Jennings had cooking in this game, it was the pass offense that didn't get the job done in terms of yardage and all of that. As you look at some of the numbers from this one, I mean, 146 yards passing for the 49ers. That's not going to cut it at home in a divisional game against a team like Seattle. And then I didn't love the 2nd and 11 after the 49ers pick up a first down. It's 2nd and 11. They throw. It winds up being incomplete, which means you have to throw on 3rd and 11, and everybody knows it. And then there's a blitz, and they go to the hot route, and it's easy, short throw to the sticks. You make the tackle, you're getting the football back if you're the Seahawks in that situation. So to me, I would have run on 2nd and 11, tried to burn some time and or make the Seahawks take a timeout in that situation as you're trying to bleed the clock. But just sloppy performance. Way too many penalties. I mean, to me, the 49ers were just they didn't look prepared to play. They seemed low energy. I thought Levi's was low energy. I don't know if it was the rain. People are like, we're not going to this game today or whatever. I mean, there were a lot of empty seats in Levi's today, more than I can remember for any game this season. I'm not putting it on the fans by any stretch, but I think the 49ers kind of played like the fans fanned in this one, like it was just going to be a walk in the park, and they were going to be able to show up and handle business and get to 6-4. And look, Trent Williams said it last week in Tampa after the game. He said, we could win this game as they did. It doesn't mean a damn thing next week because they get everybody's best shot. The Seahawks were pissed off because the 49ers, I thought, manhandled them in Seattle back in October in their building. DK Metcalf hadn't played in a minute. He was pissed off in that game. Demo Lenore owned him. I thought he was going to come out and try to put more of an imprint on the game. And so, yeah, it just I think this was I think this is actually the worst loss of the season, considering.
Is this on Shanahan or Purdy? There's another mediocre game from Brock Purdy. He's not worth $60 million.
No, I think it's on Shanahan more than it's on Purdy. To be honest, because I think that the things that I'm mentioning are all encompassing of the entire football team, and I think that's Kyle Shanahan's realm more than it's Brock Purdy's. So that's the general overarching thing for me in this one.
Boxing Fan times 4 says, what's wrong with Mason and Garendo? Why keep putting Brock in difficult situations? And where the F is Debo? Well, no, Debo played. He just didn't play particularly well. Garendo has just been like not used at all the last couple of weeks. Mason neither, as is not been used. To Biggs, as Steve Young said it best, every field goal in the red zone is a step closer to losing the game. Yeah, I mean, there's no question. You kick field goals in the red zone, you're going to lose. Fuji Simeon says cowing out with the concussion. Was that from a return? I didn't see the play.
It was the return. It was his one nice return that he had in the game, and then he went out and got evaluated for a concussion, and that was a wrap. He was immediately ruled out.
He's glass. Anthony LaRose says it feels like Shanahan doesn't trust Purdy, and Purdy doesn't trust Shanahan. Hence, why is he so quick to scramble? I think he's scrambling because there's nobody open. He
had a play though today where CMC was wide open down the middle on a check down, and he scrambled and he ran and he took a pretty good hit.
I remember
in the middle of the field.
Yeah, I remember that.
To the ribs, the late hit. I mean,
just throw the ball. The guy's open. Take what the defense gives you. It was probably a 6-7 yard pass to gain to McCaffrey, who probably would have turned it upfield for another 2 or 3 yards. But that's what you got to do when they're open, especially your best player. Throw it to him. I don't know what he was looking at.
What do you guys make of the Niners defense? Because this is a pretty interesting stat. The 49ers defense blitzed on only 2 of Geno Smith's 38 dropbacks. That translated to their lowest blitz rate of 5.3% since 2021.
It's a high school defense.
Yeah, they don't
eighth lowest blitz rate in a game this season for any team.
That's you're a genius if you don't blitz, if you get it done with your front 4. If you don't get it done with your front 4, you're an idiot if you don't blitz.
He's scared.
Well, and let's say this, Frank, real quick, like Steve Wilkes blitzed too much, which is part of the reason why Steve Wilkes is no longer with the San Francisco 49ers and was scapegoated to a certain extent because Kyle Shanahan thought that the defense last year, and I think some players internally on that defense, Frank, thought that they were a little too aggressive with the blitz and weren't necessarily comfortable with it. And now you're seeing situations where maybe they do need to blitz and they're not doing it because they predetermined, I think, in the offseason that they didn't want that to be a part of their identity.
Well, I mean, Bosa's the only guy they got rushing the passer. And I mean, Floyd was decent today as well, but this is not a ferocious defensive line that we're used to seeing with the 49ers. They got handled. So, I mean, I'm not saying go blitz happy, but the element of surprise,
mix it up.
Would have been great.
Yeah, I got a question for JD and Larry. You guys are down there. What's Brandon Staley's role on this team? I mean, he's here as
he's selling churros in the mezzanine level right now. No, I mean, what's his role? I mean, he's a defensive. He's just a coach. Another set of eyes and ears.
For what though? What does he do? I mean, the defense is so vanilla. I mean, it played good, but they don't blitz. 2 out of 38. I'm watching this game. The one time they blitzed in the end of that last drive, didn't Demo blitz off the corner?
I mean, he's Brandon Staley. He's not Buddy Ryan.
But he was a defensive coordinator of the Rams, wasn't he? Didn't they win it?
Yeah, but he was also the defensive coordinator of the Chargers last year, and they gave up 63 points to the Raiders. So,
I mean, head coach. He was a head coach. Yeah,
he was the head coach. But I mean, he was the head coach. Probably had a lot to say about what they did on the defense. I would have.
But I mean, he's got to be better than he's got. What my point is, he's got to be better than Sorensen.
No, he doesn't.
I don't know.
He's got some experience.
They're working together.
NFL.
They're working together. I mean,
he is helping with game plans, to my understanding, and just kind of everything with the defense week to week. It general input. I'm with you, Frank. Like, no, he doesn't. Like that. I look. I think Sorensen has been fine. To be, I mean, yeah. When you don't get home, you wish you would have blitzed more. I think. Look, this team defensively is just not as talented as they've been. I know I've said that like a broken record every week. The margin for error isn't quite what it was. They have to play better complementary football. They're not playing complementary football. When the defense is playing well, the offense has to score. And then that will allow the defense can bend but don't break, or can give up a touchdown and not have it be the deciding factor in a game because the offense only put up 17 points. So I don't really put this on Sorensen, especially today. I'm not saying you're necessarily saying that, but like today, it's
I mean,
it's one
they
drive at
look
the end.
In
Score
this
30,
game,
score
in
30,
this-
win 30-20.
Yeah, in today's game, they needed, and I talked about it a lot during the week. This game, because of the injuries, they needed, and because of the heavy usage and the breaking up of Nick Bosa's body, the 49ers needed to come out, have success running the ball, and then dominate the time of possession. Well, they came out, they've had success running the ball. They ran it for almost 5 yards a carry, but they didn't dominate the time of possession because they were more, more interested in achieving offensive balance, which of course they did. 27 runs, 28 passes. That's nice offensive balance. But your passing game wasn't there. You didn't have Ayuk. You didn't have Kittle. You had a sick Saubert. You had Pearsall who was getting shut out. You had Cowing who had been concussed. You had no passing game weapons really to speak of. Debo, it doesn't separate, and Jennings is all you had. This was a game that was screaming for a 40 carry run dominant performance. They ran it successfully and just didn't want to keep running it. So I kind of blame Shanahan. It's like he's addicted to offensive balance. That's great over the course of a long season. But in a game like this, when you're going up against a team like Seattle that was 27th in the NFL in time of possession, you're number 2. They can't stop the run. They've traded out their inside linebackers. Run the heck out of it. You're running for 5 yards a carry. You only get 27 runs. This should have been 37 runs. If you're running for 5 yards a carry and you're down a couple passing game weapons, then run the hell out of it. No, it's like we have to have balance. And, it's like other teams run it a ton. Green Bay lost Love. They put Malik Willis out there. They ran it 53 times in the first game and 37 times in the second game and kind of righted the ship and figured out a way to win with their backup quarterback. It's like you're down some key guys. Your D-line is banged up. You needed to dominate the time of possession. And what was the final time of possession? It was pretty close, wasn't it?
It was 33-27, I believe.
Yeah.
It was 18-12 at halftime. Yeah, it ended up 33-25 to 26-35.
Yeah, I mean, so you won the time of possession, but this was a game where you needed to dominate the time of possession and play complementary football. And I thought the team that came out and played complementary football the best would win, and it was Seattle. Seattle was the one that played complementary football in this game, I thought. We got this one from Terrence Sullivan. He said Mason didn't touch the ball after the fumbled kickoff. Campbell looks lost most plays. Jennings first down on 3rd and 12 was the play of the game. Yeah. When they threw it to Jennings on 3rd and 12 and he caught it at 8 or 9 yards and then just muscled through for the first down, I thought, oh my God. Then he scored the touchdown a couple plays later. I'm like, man, this guy is taking this thing over, and they went up losing the game. So they just couldn't get any first downs on that last drive, and they couldn't stop him on defense. Fuji Simeon says enough with the Debo jet sweeps. Try Cowing or Ricky. Yeah, I mean, Debo on the jet sweeps. He can't even get back to the line of scrimmage. Most of those plays are TFLs. Come on Friday says everyone outside of JJ and Brock looked bad. James Makastad says, how many times did CMC go what's this?
1
They
yard.
go 1 yard on first down. Kyle Shanahan's predictable. Wide receivers don't separate. High throw to Debo should have been Jawan's route per Olsen. I didn't hear that on the TV copy because I wasn't watching the TV. Xavier says Kyle needs to answer for why the offense only moves when Purdy goes off script. His scrambles are the only reason the offense doesn't get shut out. Yeah, the offense is just has I mean, when was the last time they've had 2 or 3 plays in a row that worked? I mean, it's like there's an awful lot of they go forward, they go backward, they go forward, they go backward. There's an awful lot of negative plays these days. Johnny Ace is, did Debo try selling the rest of the team lock in, or try telling the rest of the team to lock in? Maybe he just didn't say it. Maybe that's the question. Is the reason that you guys weren't locked in is that Debo didn't tell everybody? Xavier says Gross Matos mailed in that last drive.
He was huffing and puffing.
Was he? He was probably
Yeah.
out of gas.
He's probably not. He's not conditioned. He just got activated.
Yeah. Jay Cash says, who are you trading in the offseason? Wow. There aren't a lot of trades in the NFL offseason. I'm probably cutting a lot of guys more than I'm trading.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? Dana Kwai? Dana Ya? What is that? Dana Yaddle? What is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yowl? Krug, you give him 60 if you want. If you want, don't. What does it say?
Don't cap.
Don't cap. Okay, well, he's going to probably get 60. That would be my guess. Fuji Simeon says Shanahan looks tired. Does he need help on offense? He definitely looks gassed. He looks beaten up. He looks like he needs a sabbatical. Anthony Catania's in the house. He says, what exactly does Staley do in the old Office Space? What would you say you do here? Dale says Niners play like a team that expects to win, not a team that competes to win. Kyle is not a leader, nor is Sorensen. They are cheerleader empty suits. This team has no fire. Even Fred is checked out.
Calling Kyle Shanahan a cheerleader is next level. If you
Not much of a cheerleader.
guys, yeah, it's not very.
Big Dad 5'2" says, turn the lights out, bring in the bulldozers, and turn Levi's into a parking lot. I think it's time to admit that the Niners are just an average team.
Well, when you consider
they're 5
they've
and 5,
lost
it's pretty average.
3 games to division opponents that I would consider average teams. I don't see the Cardinals, Rams, or Seahawks, if any of them made the playoffs, going anywhere.
I mean, all these teams are average. That's the NFL. The NFL is good because it's
Parity.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's the thing that really gives me hope. Now with the tiebreakers and all that crap, I'm not going to figure that out. I don't know about that. But can the 49ers beat Arizona? Yeah, they can. Can they beat the Rams? Yeah, they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I don't think they can beat Detroit.
But no, hell no, they can't beat Detroit. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that frustrates me. Basketball and football are really not that different in certain aspects. I'll give you a perfect example. The game was lost with Campbell. Now, we've seen Campbell multiple games allow an offensive player to run across his face. That is a no-no. You can't do that. You got to have your peripheral vision, your shoulders square, and you step into the play. If he did that with Geno Smith, I believe the 49ers win that game. He freezes in those moments. He follows the ball and not playing it. He's not playing his keys. I play defense. You got to play your keys, and you got to be instinctual. That's a coaching point. To see him make that same mistake in multiple games is frustrating to me because, to me, that was where the game was lost. Geno Smith did not run when his back was turned. He ran by him. If Geno was coming towards you, you're moving into the play, keeping your legs square and sliding and attacking Geno and making the tackle. That didn't happen. That's a coaching point. This isn't new. We've seen this before throughout the season.
Yeah, that's true. Dazza says, why can't the Niners use Mason and CMC the way the Lions use Gibbs and Montgomery? I agree. I mean, to me, Gibbs gets to the edge at will. He's big plays. The Niners have the talent. They just don't utilize them right. DJ Prismatix said, what are your thoughts gets on Kyle's inability to utilize our players to their max potential? His lack of personal accountability is palpable. He doesn't love to point the finger at himself.
Why would you want to use Mason, though, like the Lions do? Mason was only the leading rusher in the league the first 4 weeks. Why would you want to use a guy that's leading the league in rushing?
Well, he's saying that they use Montgomery and they use.
No, I'm talking about I'm Mason. I'm being sarcastic. Why would you want to use a guy that's leading the league in rushing?
Yeah, don't use that guy. You might win. L. Kurtz says tank for a better pick. Yeah.
Oh,
great.
God.
That's. Can you imagine? Dale says Kyle is the one that needs the Avengers, not Brock. I'm usually not down on Kyle, but F him. I'm tired of this crap. He doesn't lead this team. What do you guys think?
I don't think it's about leadership. I really don't. I think he's proven that he's had some teams that are in some difficult spots in season and been able to pull them out of it. Like you're not a bad leader if you win multiple playoff games every single time you make the postseason. I mean, he's gone 2-1 4 times like that. Like you can't do that on teams that are 3-4, 3-5 a couple of times in the middle of the season and then go 7-2 or 10-0. Like to be able to rally the troops in the middle of the season that's going awry and could completely fall off shows that he's a leader. Guys play hard for him. I don't think this is an effort thing for the 49ers. It's an execution thing. They're not, and I think it is in some ways defensively, it's a lack of talent thing. I think the offense to me has the talent. And the offense should be putting up more points and should be better in the red zone and should be more balanced between the guys who are healthy and available in a given week. That's where I put it on Kyle Shanahan specifically. Execution of the offense, needs to be sharper. What I put on Kyle Shanahan is more attention to detail when it comes to special teams than had been there at different junctures this year. Defensively, I just think they lack some talent and they haven't quite figured out the ways to maximize what they have defensively. But I also think if the offense is doing their job more consistently, they could have the same defense and still have a couple of more victories by playing better complementary football.
I mean, to me, I think it's real clear what this team is. They've been bad on special teams, and the coverage units are always a problem. Okay. They are thin up front. They had the best second level defenders in the entire league when they had Aziz and Warner and Greenlaw. Now they're down 2 of those guys. So they have one special player in the middle and Fred. He's getting worn down. They have a defensive line that used to be deeper, is now thinner, and it's getting worn down. And they've got a really good secondary, but it's just kind of young. And it's just, they missed Mooney today. They don't really have a free safety and they miss Mooney. So to me, that's what I see defensively. Offensively, I think their weapons lack speed, and I think their offensive line's got some holes. They just haven't adapted well. Purdy's been good, but not great. He's had some fantastic games. He's had some subpar halves in games. Fuji Simeon says if Bosa is out, no pass rush. Love and Allen are going to feast. Smack Jones 919 says problem is Kyle is not kicking himself. #prideful. Rodman Sanchez says we got an offensive problem this year. Kyle or Purdy? What's the question? Who's the more of an offensive problem this year? I would say Kyle's lack of adaptability is a big part of it. I haven't seen a lot of creativity there. Fuji Simeon says Hargrave is due $28 million next year. Is he cut? Let me think about that for a second. Okay, I thought about it. Yes, he's cut. I'd say it's a very high likelihood he's cut. Perfect Blackness Senior says all these great questions speak to Shanny's stubbornness, but questions that the local press will prioritize access over accountability. Season is over. I don't think that anybody's going to lose access over some tough questions, but I hear what you're saying. You want to hear tougher questions. Fuji Simeon says food helps after a loss. Larry, how was the media food? It was all right. It was okay.
JD, can you confirm?
Yeah, I never usually complain, man. There are enough options to where you can find something that'll get you through the day that's quality. It was a good snack day, though. I'll say that.
JD was eating one thing. What was that thing I was asking you about at halftime? I'm like, damn, JD, what do you got going over there?
Oh, yeah. Well, there was an unbelievable Southwestern chicken soup. It was really good. And then they threw a taquito in there. Like they threw a little taquito in with the soup. It was really good, spicy. I'm a big snacker. I've got these pretzel crisps here that I've got just kind of, left over. If you need a little,
got multiple bags of those in my bag right now.
I feel like Danny Heston.
If you got a little sweet tooth, you can go with the brownie bites. I got some brownie bites.
Oh, those are fire. Those things
are fire. I mean, that's like basically just like brownies that they just put into chips, and it's just you can eat those things for days. Danny, what are you saying?
Frank knows
Danny?
I'm a snacker, and I know Frank's a snacker.
Danny, you're muted. Danny, you're muted. Now you're turning off your light.
Yeah,
it looks
my
like
light just
We don't play around in the media grub room.
I was saying you guys are probably check your backpacks on the way out. Security, they probably they're loaded. They got.
I'll tell you the
JD's
best
got
one.
12 packs of brownies in his
brownie
bag.
bites.
Larry's
And you can never go wrong with a Cliff Bar. Maybe some.
Oh yeah, especially that one.
Those
are
staple.
That's the best flavor they got.
Before my workout.
No other great spread. The Sharks, they take care of you down there, man.
Really?
Oh yeah. You go to a Sharks game. The spread is unbelievable.
My Sharks game.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like prime rib and shrimp and like it's
cake.
Really?
All these different. Oh yeah, they take care of you.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on in San Jose?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, we can't get a freaking goal scorer, but we got all kinds of food. Okay, we got this one from Matthew Rowley. Says, enjoying listening to the shock and depression of Larry. Thank you. A month ago, Larry and Damon called me an over-emotional idiot. Did I call you an idiot? That sounds more like Damon than me. When I said this team wasn't making the playoffs because they were washed. Well, you know what? Maybe you said it ahead of time. We weren't ready for you. You're a man before your time.
You're a visionary.
Matthew. You're a visionary. We didn't see the greatness of Matthew Rowley in September when you were saying it was done. I needed to wait till closer to Thanksgiving. I don't like saying that season's over before I'm wearing a jacket. Mario Trutanic says 49ers lack creativity on offense and defense this entire year. They have had an arrogant approach of just lining up and playing this season. The players and coaches are resting on their past play. Wow.
That's kind of an assumption, I'd say.
It is, but I mean that's his take. It's his take. I'm not going to tell him he's wrong. Bill M says they have to go 10-7 to have a chance. No, they're not going 10-7. Do you think they're going 10-7? They're going to win. Is there 5 winnable games left?
They have to beat Green
schedule?
Bay. They have to beat Green Bay to go 10-7 because they're not beating Buffalo, and I don't think they're beating Detroit.
They better win. So in other words, they better win next week.
Yep.
Yeah. Because they have no shot in Buffalo with Josh Allen, especially if Nick Bosa's not out.
He's playing well. What do you got there, Kev?
It's one of those 3, and then you got to win one of the 3 between Green Bay, Buffalo, and Detroit, and then
so Green Bay, you got to beat Green Bay. Hey, Green Bay almost lost to the Bears today, so it's not like it's like
right.
Bears are a circus. I mean, you got to beat the Bears. So you got to beat the Bears. You got to beat Green Bay. You got to beat Arizona. You got to beat the Rams.
That's not. That's not unbelievable.
And
they can lose all those games.
It's not unbelievable, but it's also like
you got to beat Miami.
It's not
you got to beat Miami.
Miami is tough. That's gonna be tough.
I'll just give you another hypothetical. I don't believe it's out of the realm that they could lose the next 2 games, come home and beat the Bears and Rams and be 7-7. Now you're not going to feel good about being 7-7, but if you're 7-7, you're in it on December 12th. And so like that doesn't, we'd be
Good
saying
point.
you got to run the
you
table.
beat the Lions.
Well, then maybe okay. Well, you know what? Maybe you're in a better place as a team.
Maybe the Lions are like
maybe they're resting
14-1.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions are. I don't think the Lions are going to run the table either. And look, I think they're a bad matchup for the Niners, given the way they run the ball and physicality, and like I think they'd run for 300 yards on the Niners right now, and kind of have their way at the line of scrimmage. But it's again what you wonder about is if you lose the next 2 and you're 5-7 coming home. Does a team lose their fight?
The way that the Lions
and will
are right,
to get to 7-7.
The way that the Lions are right now is the way the Niners used to be.
Yes,
They look like a young Niners team.
The only way the Niners are beating the Lions is if food poisoning breaks out and somehow the Lions have nothing.
Yeah, I could see if the Lions are 15-1 and have already clinched the 1 seed, that would be your hope when you face them. Because
Crazy Boo Boo Chicken says Kyle is the GM. But if anything, John should be fired. I don't know about that. They just had a great draft. It would really be weird to fire him now.
14-1, I guess it would be.
Fuji Simeon says, "What a realistic end of season record? What's a realistic end of the season record for the Niners? 9-8, right? I think 9-8.
9-8, 10-7.
Yeah, I'd say 9-8. Anthony LaRosa says Niners need their swagger back. What happened to the boombox? They used to be feared. Throw the kitchen sink at Green Bay next week. If they lose, rebuild.
Didn't their boombox guy get sent to Houston?
That's
They've
really it.
had
I mean, it has
the-
nothing to do
they've
with
had the
blocking,
boom
tackling,
box.
or talent. It has to do with the boombox. If we had a better boombox, if we had a bigger boombox, if we had better music on our boombox, we
Wait,
would
no,
have
I
gone
actually
to.
haven't seen a boombox video in a while. Is that might
They
be
still-
Lombardi's fault?
They still do it.
Yeah, what's up with I blame Lombardi.
Well,
I blame
I'm trying to
Lombardi
think-
for
Lombardi
this.
needs to get on that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think the last time. I think Seattle was maybe the last time I caught it. I usually will catch it on the road. I don't bother a lot. It's harder to get access for media members to the area where they come out at home. With
You're not in the
boombox.
right tier. Is that
So
what
you
you're
don't-
saying?
You don't see it. You don't. Well, no, you can be it. It's just harder to get to that area
You
where
gotta
they
know
walk out.
You got to know somebody.
You got to know a guy. Yeah.
So it usually, when you see the videos of it, unless the Niners are putting it out, it's usually road games when you see the boom. But they still do it. They've been doing it for every game.
Sean says 1999. Here you go, Larry. If they don't have the horses, that's on coaching. They have bad contracts and extend players that need to walk. Debo is cooked. They don't draft an offensive lineman. They won't play rookies unless they're forced to. Who is responsible?
Debo
Good
is
point.
cooked. Debo's a little cooked right now, guys. I'm being dead serious. Like it's
All these
it's
tough
not
questions.
looking good for Debo. It's not looking good for Debo.
Trey Niners says to say it's not Kyle's fault is crazy talk. Who assembles this team? Who manages the games during close games? Who assembles the coaching staff? Trash. Well, okay, but my point is, it's like it's just because it's all his responsibility, but is it him making every pick? Probably not. Is it him coordinating the defense? Probably not. If you ask me, I mean, look at who they're competing with. They're competing with who's the champ? Kansas City. Kansas City has Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Okay, so the Niners have Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy. So they're taking a back seat to Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But where they're really taking a back seat is the Chiefs have Dave Taub. He's like the best special teams coach going. The Niners have a special teams screw up every week. You got Spags as their defensive coordinator. He's been doing it for years. He's been a former head coach. He's a phenomenal defensive coordinator. Niners are going with a first-year defensive coordinator. So, I mean, that to me, if the Niners are ever going to get over with Shanahan, he's going to have a star defensive coordinator. He's going to have a big-time defensive coordinator who has his own credibility, has his own. He's not going to get it done with just like a pretty good defensive coordinator. He's going to need a great defensive coordinator.
We talked a lot today about speed on offense. Guess who the fastest ball carrier on the Niners offense was today?
Purdy.
It was Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Fastest ball carrier is Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Pathetic.
As
he
far as
ran.
the thing with Kyle, I think some of it's just perception as well, because he's
not good in
pretty,
the pressers when they lose. That's for sure.
He's pretty arrogant when people have asked him, hey, he refuses to run a 2-minute practice, 2-minute drill in practice. Why? I mean, every team should be running a 2-minute drill. Why do the Niners down 2 scores with 8 minutes to go in games just take their sweet time?
They can't play tempo
because they don't practice it.
They can't play up tempo.
Yeah, why? I mean, why not? I would love to see him come out against Green Bay and do something different. Why not no huddle? Just show something different. Like, hey, like today, even I was thinking of it too, Larry. 4th and 1 opening drive. It looked like it was more like 4th and a foot.
Right. Go
at
for
the 35.
it.
And I know it's
Set
your
the
35,
tone.
but it's Seattle. Show a tone. Look, you get down early.
But
to
also,
Seattle,
if you go
should be able
for it,
to
it
beat 'em.
says, I think we're going to kick your ass.
Yes, that's
You know
what I'm
what I mean?
talking about.
And that's a good message to send early in the game.
Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't like that at all. Going for the field goal there was loser talk.
Well,
that was a loser move.
That was the punt. That was opening
Yeah, I
drive.
mean, or I should say, the punt. What am I saying?
Yeah.
Field goal. I wish it was a field goal. Niner Matt says Niners lost 3 division games, being up with 2 minutes left. Ugh, God. Big Hurt drops this one. He says Niners can't lose more than 1 more game and no more division losses to make the playoffs. Yep, you're right. You're absolutely right. George Macris in the house says offensive woes almost all come down to the offensive line. Defense is a mix of poor scheme and some talent outside of three or four guys. I mean, to me, when you go from Greenlaw, who's that's like a Bentley, and then you're driving a Devondre Campbell down the street. I mean, that's like a Dodge Pacer. That's a major downgrade from the Bentley to the Pacer. Dale's.
When we rewatch the tape, we'll have a better angle on this. But
right,
Devondre Campbell on the last play where Geno scored, that's where his lateral quickness is just killing you. Because
that's what I said.
That's what you're saying, Frank. It's just like he's in line with him, and he just doesn't. He can't. He just can't move. He can't move.
That's
that
coaching.
That costs the game.
That's coaching. I'm telling you, when I coach defensive players, the one thing you can do it in football too. Can you see the opposite goalposts? Can you see the opposite basket? That lets you know that you are in line properly. You can move backwards and you can move forward, but your eyes have to be focused on what's in front of you. Geno Smith ran towards Campbell and he veered to the right. If your shoulder is square, you're attacking that guy. That's the thing that pisses me off, because you can blame Campbell or you can say Sorensen. This is a coaching point. Even in that sequence, if he can't do that, I got to get somebody else in there who's going to make that tackle, because that is the game right there.
Yeah, no question.
That's the game.
Maybe Jalen Graham.
Yeah, anybody.
I mean, how about that? I mean, to me, going to Campbell this year has been a major step back. Dale says, be honest, compare Dan Campbell and Shanny in the leadership column. Who are you taking? Who's running? Who are you going to run through a wall for? Shanny is a CEO. Campbell is a coach. I don't know. I mean, Campbell was a bad coach last year in the NFC title game. He went for a bunch of things. He took a bunch of risks he shouldn't have taken, and his team didn't go to the Super Bowl. But the one thing I do like about Dan Campbell is Dan Campbell. Now, you can overdo this, and I forget who it was that overdid it. Maybe Kapler or somebody. I forget who overdid it. But you can't just go and it's on me. It's on me. You can't just repetitively try to take the blame.
Like Gabe Kapler?
Yeah, I forget who it was. Somebody was kept saying it was on me. It's on me. It's on me. Well, fuck, of course it's on you. You're the goddamn coach. But I mean, it's on you. But I mean, it's like Dan Campbell will go to the presser sometimes and say, hey guys, it's on me. And he takes the blame. Shanahan never goes to the presser and says it's on me, ever. The only time he's ever said it's on me is when they traded Trey Lance for a 4th-round pick. And he's like, it's on me. And you know what? It was probably the smartest thing he ever did, because there was a whole lot less criticism that came his way because he owned it so fully. And that's, I think there'd be less complaints if he was a little bit more took a little bit more ownership over the failure, instead of kind of not, I don't want to say shifting the blame, because I don't think he shifts the blame, but he just doesn't like or willingly accept blame. And it's not a great trait.
Why do you think he's like that, Larry? Why do you think he's like that?
It's a great question, Frank. I think it's maybe because he doesn't think it's his fault.
Okay.
Partially maybe because he has a hard time just with that. I think it's his weakness, is that he's not great at just shouldering the blame. I think here's the thing though. I think Kyle shows the media very little because he's keeping everybody. He knows we're not working together. We're working against each other. I think he shows a lot more sides of his personality to the players, and I think he's more endearing and more likable to the players than the personality that he shows at the presser to the fans and to the media. I think he understands that if you lean in, if you accept too much blame, it just gives people license to just go after you, and he just doesn't want to give anybody license, so he just kind of pushes back. Sometimes it's good though to be like, hey, you know what, guys, this one's on me. This one's on me. I should have done this, this, and this. Now, if you say it all the time, that's just as bad as not taking the blame. It's almost worse.
He should give that speech. You ever see that college baseball coach? Who was it? Texas. He's just, I think it was
Gus Gustafson.
Just screaming and screaming at the players, just F-bomb after F-bomb, yelling at him. Then he walks away. He goes, I'm sorry, guys. I let you down. It's all me. It's all me. And he walks away.
Yeah, but don't you think that can be overdone too? I forget who it was that did it. I'm not sure who did it, but it's like saying you want to watch the film. You know, you say
Right,
it
right,
once, okay, that's fine. You say it as a coverall, and then suddenly it's like, hey, buddy, were you even here for the game? Did you see the game? Do you know what you're watching? Matthew Rowley says, why do the 49ers refuse to play their best players? Jennings is our best wide receiver, and until injuries wasn't on the field. Currently Mason is better than CMC. Yeah, I mean, he definitely has guys that he likes to put out there and guys that he doesn't. D. Martinez says Forrester needs to go. He can take his boys Brendel and McKivitz with him. Pooney was a find, but I don't trust him to develop with Chris Forrester. Yeah, Forrester really does talk up Brendel. And I thought McKivitz had a nightmarish game as well. One of those sacks was on McKivitz. McKivitz also had a penalty. I thought McKivitz and Brendel really backslid today. They both struggled.
And I thought Trent Williams didn't move well today either. Like he was really not himself.
Bad ankle.
It is, and he was really struggling to get up and out of the locker room tonight. And I think he was a lot closer to not playing in this game than people think. He was really battling it like that.
Yeah,
I will say
he was not moving in the locker room on Friday like a guy who could play for 3 weeks. He was like barely moving, and he played. So I mean, I don't know. He must have took some shot, something. They shot him up with something because he was out there. I'm sure he's feeling like hell. He wasn't even standing at his locker when he talked to the media. Usually he stands. He was like sitting. Yep. And it didn't look like he could stand. Frank says Mason on the last drive would have been game over. Fresh bash running back or fresh something running back sitting on the bench while we punt the last 3 minutes. Kyle is now the issue. I did think he misread that too. I mean, come on, go with your fresh back. Go with a fresh back. Use your backs. Use all of your backs. Dale says Jimmy G was right. Your plays suck. Oh, God. Wait a second. Let me get that one. We got this one from D. Martinez. Kyle Shanahan can't ask his dad for the Ricky Waters playbook. I would love to see some of those plays that they called in 1994, that's for sure. Scotty D says line of scrimmage lost this game. Only one punt in the second half, but the time of possession killed. Defense held 13 points till the last 1 minute. So I what was the time of possession in the second half? I wonder, was it favoring Seattle?
It was it was pretty even. It was 18-12 in the first half roughly, and it ended up looks like it ended up about 15-15 in the second half. Very even in the second half.
Clawdaddy Arcade says needed Garrett and Njoku for a first and third round picks. At minimum, they needed Jadeveon Clowney. Failed at the deadline. Spilled milk. This team is anemic. We need 2 out of the next 3 games to be wins. We got this one from George, who says D'Amico and Salah's high energy, high passion guys. Kyle is a low key guy. He needs a high passion, high energy coach on his staff. Got a brain. We need a heart. Well, Steve Wilkes was pretty high energy last year, and that didn't work. Terrence Sullivan says 2 challenge plays not changing were huge. Both first downs late. Slow on offense and slow on defense on the edges. I don't know. I mean, granted, I'm up in the press box and I get the one replay thing, literally straight up in the air. I've got to look straight up. It's not an easy thing to necessarily check out. I could have swore, was it the DK one where they challenged it and they said that he was in? I thought he for sure was out. And then when they showed the replay, they showed one foot getting down, but the next foot was out. So I didn't.
No, he had drugged the other one.
Yeah, he was in.
He drug it.
He was in.
Yeah.
Okay.
He got the first. He got the one that looked out. He got down. He got it down first on the prior step.
Yeah,
and that wasn't noticeable. It wasn't noticeable initially, but it was clear on replay.
Clawdaddy Arcade says to those saying Kyle Shanahan needs to go, Singletary, Tom Sula, Kelly should sober you up. Grass is greener where you water it. LK, who you grabbing in the offseason in the draft? Well, I mean, I've done a ton of mock drafts already. I've got all kinds of guys. I mean, I've got all kinds of guys I like. To me, one thing I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of rebuild that defensive line. I love Kenneth Grant from Michigan. I love Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. The defensive tackles. I love Nazir Stackhouse later from Georgia. I'm getting some. I'm rebuilding that defensive line. If I was in charge. We got this one from James Wilson. If a spade, Kyle and Purdy have been mid all year. Okay. Easy Tino says Kyle is purposely burying Mason now. That's obvious. Feliciano is probably the third best offensive lineman, but doesn't dress. Debo looks like he weighs 250 pounds. Yeah, Debo does look a little thick right now. Perfect Blackness is the defense has got to stop on 4th and 1 at midfield with less than 4 minutes left. That was Jair Brown, and the offense did nothing with it. It's gutless to blame the defense. I mean, I kind of agree with this. I mean, Jair Brown, they got that stop on 4th down. You got the ball back. You have it's you're on the West Coast, good weather. You've got your starting quarterback there. You need 2 or 3 first downs, and it is game freaking over, and they cannot move the ball when they need to. They can't run it when everybody knows they need to run. They can't put games away when they need to put games away. It's like if you're Kyle Shanahan and you're going to be an offensive genius and you're one of the great offensive coaches in the game, you have to be able to come up with whatever sequence of play calls that it requires to finish off the game in the 4th. This has been a season-long problem for the 49ers. When they've gotten the ball back in the 4th quarter with the ability to put the other team away, they are unable to. And we can point to the defense, and Campbell's not Greenlaw, and the D-line's not as good as it used to be, and they're not as deep, and all these things are true. But their offense can't do it with the money on the table in the 4th quarter. I don't know why.
Want to know? This is my key play of the game. If we were all going to say our key play of the game, I wrote this one down when it happened. It was right after Bosa got injured. It was after a sack. He sacked Geno Smith, and then Kenneth Walker ran the ball. It was a 3rd and 12 from Seattle's 28 in the 3rd quarter. 8:07 left in the 3rd. The Niners are winning 10-6. Geno throws a pretty bad ball up to DK Metcalf, and Isaac Yiadom misplays it and just jumps in front of the ball, and that allows DK to get a 26-yard reception and continue the drive on a 3rd and 12. That ball could have been intercepted. It could have been tipped. It should have been intercepted. It was just a bad play by Yiadom, and that drive led to a touchdown. Seattle takes the lead 13-10.
You're right.
That wasn't even Yiadom's worst play on that drive. If you go further on the 1st and 10 play from the 21, Geno found Jackson Smith and Najigba for 17 yards, and Yiadom was in full trail mode the entire fucking time. The next play was 1st and goal from the 4. They scored 2 plays later. I mean, that was a huge play. I mean, think about that play. That was 1st and 10 from the 21. That was a 17-yard completion to Jackson Smith Najigba. And the next play, it's 1st and goal from the 4. So Yiadom screwed up twice on that drive, and both those were costly.
I hate to say it too, because I really liked Yiadom coming into this year. He had a really good season last year with the Saints, but he's been on the end of a lot of bad plays so far this season, and 2 really bad ones on that drive.
Let's see, where is it? We got this one here. Joe Castaneda. He says, I want to see Brock Purdy not get a throw batted at least one game. Yeah, he does get a number of throws batted down. We'll get this one from Sucker Free. He says, why other teams can have injuries and still succeed, but the 49ers lose one player and then crap out. It's a fair observation. Micah Cervantes, Mason is talented, but is nerve-wracking with the ball security. He's good, but also makes a lot of mistakes. I understand why he doesn't play much with CMC. Okay, but I mean, CMC's got double Achilles. You're telling me you can't spot the 3rd leading rusher in the league? I mean, that's what Mason has been. I mean, spot him. Jesus. We got this one. Zachary Kelway. Smart owners don't panic and fire their coaches and GMs when a team takes a step backwards. They missed on draft picks. Players are mad hurt. The team is long in the tooth. Coaches were robbed away. I kind of agree with Zachary Kelway here. You don't, I mean, Mike Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game in 5 fucking years, and he's still considered one of the great coaches in the game. You don't see Pittsburgh showing him the door. It's like, why? Because they view that it's not Mike Tomlin that's the problem. And now here they are. They're playing better now, and they're going to the playoffs. It's like you don't. I don't know. Do I think Kyle Shanahan's the greatest coach of all time? No. But do I think he's the greatest coach the Niners have had in a long time? Yes.
Well, and Larry, here, how about this reality check real quick? I mean, Kyle Shanahan is a year away from being on the hot seat. And what I mean is this season can end up how it ends up. There'd have to be another bad year next year, and then he'd be on the hot seat for 2026. So like we're talking 2 years plus before Kyle Shanahan, in my mind, unless things get crazy bad, the 49ers would even consider firing Kyle Shanahan. It is not a thing now. And if they had a bad year next year, maybe it becomes a thing for the following year, but then he'd have to crap out that year too. And we'd be talking about it then. Like it to me, that's a non-story right now.
Where I think a lot of people are pointing to, JD, was Grant's thing earlier in this year where he said he had a source that said if the Niners didn't go to the Super Bowl that Kyle would be out. But I agree with you. I don't think there's anything to that at all.
Yeah.
Greg RJZ says, sorry guys, Kyle is not a great coach whatsoever. Okay.
Who are you bringing in if you do
the guy
that,
went to the Super Bowl last year. They were in the
Belichick?
Super Bowl last year.
Like Bill Belichick's probably the only guy I think I would do that for. So
what's that? I wouldn't fire Kyle for Belichick right now. Belichick was, was Belichick doing it in New England the last few years without Brady?
I'm not saying I would do it, but that would be the only name I would consider it for.
Okay. I don't like the Ben Johnson talk because people are just saying that because they're the best team in the league. It's just like oh, that's convenient. You want the guy that just because the team that he's coaching happens to be the best team in the league. It's like what is Ben Johnson if he doesn't have the best offensive line, the 2 best running backs, great wide receivers, great everything.
Well, and the same people that are calling for Ben Johnson literally a year ago were demanding that Ken Dorsey come here. So I mean, I don't know. L. Kurt says it's almost like letting good coaches go year after year is catching up to Kyle. It's amazing how nobody takes Spags. Nobody ever takes Spags, huh? Max 707 says if Purdy plays like today, is he worth $60 million? He wasn't great today. But I think he's going to get the going rate. Greg RJZ, how stupid is Kyle? Fangio is doing a great job in Philly. They didn't want to change their D. They wanted continuity. They felt like Fangio was going to change their D. Poontang Pie, which is an interesting handle. Dan, this isn't you, is it? He says golf would look like Ryan Leaf behind this, or golf would look like Ryan Leaf behind this O-line. An awful play calling. Purdy covers up a lot of flaws of Kyle's passing scheme. MBA Elias says being the 3rd oldest team in the NFL is starting to catch up to the 49ers. 2024 record will be 6-11. Dixie Normus. There we go. Nice.
Wow, they got you.
Dixie Normus 209. Thank you. Why wasn't Ricky more involved? Ricky didn't get open today. Propa says last year was the year. The players know it. Kyle knows it. Anthony Catania, good to see him. He says, how would Jim Harbaugh do with this team? Jim Harbaugh's doing pretty well. Did the Chargers win tonight, by the way? I did wager on them.
They just threw a deep touchdown to Chase Higgins or T. Higgins.
Who? What's the score?
I think it's 27-20. Chargers.
Gentlemen, I'm going to step off because I need to get ready for later tonight. All right?
No problem, Frank. Good to see you, man. Have a great Sunday.
You.
Appreciate you.
Frank.
We're almost done. We're just coming down the home stretch. We got so many supers here. We got 91 supers. Fuji Simeon says bag check before you leave. Levi's snack shrinkage. Okay. James Wilson. Sean King went to a Super Bowl, got benched. Why not Purdy? Dilfer and Collins got cut. Well, partially because Purdy's played pretty well this year.
When did Sean King go to a Super Bowl?
Yeah, Sean King didn't go to a Super Bowl. I mean, seriously.
He went to the NFC Championship.
They lost to the Eagles that year.
Yeah.
He almost got to
He was
Super
a
Bowl.
rookie that went to the NFC Championship. Yeah.
Fuji Simeon says that can be Staley's job. He can be the boombox guy.
Sweet.
What if Kyle said, "Hey, we need to mix things up," and that was one of the things they changed up, and they made Staley the boombox guy?
Last year it was Stilks from the booth. Now it's it's Staley to the boombox.
Propa says Campbell was moving as slow as Mike Tyson on Friday. Hey, them's fighting words. How sad was that? Kevin Wood says Campbell sucks. He's the modern day Barry Switzer. You talk about Dan Campbell, not Devondre. Oli Kao says Kyle haters should know a new scheme won't fit many of our players. Y'all ready for mediocrity for a few years? Things need to change, but not the coach, not right now. Brett says, how many times this season has a lack of execution and discipline costed this team in a pivotal moment? Isn't that on the coaching staff to some level? No amount of scheme can make up for that. Andre Hanna says Debo is damaged goods. He's nowhere near the Debo he was during his all-pro year. Niners need to replenish the wide receiver group and draft a wide receiver in the first round. Wow. I wouldn't mind having that kid Tetaroa McMillan from Arizona. Fuji Simeon says, agree with JD. Unless Kyle is fighting with 49er fans like Sirianni did, he's fine, safe for the next 2 years. That's right. Remember that Sirianni a couple weeks ago? Hey, what? It's like, dude, are you trying to get fired? Scotty D says, Kevin, who is your favorite player and the one you want cut? Look at that. A question for Kevin.
That's interesting. Fred Warner, probably. Just like his
You want him cut?
No. He's my favorite player.
All right.
Like cut right now, or
yeah, who do you want cut?
I was going to say Campbell.
I don't think it really makes sense to cut anyone right now, because what are you going to do? Cut him and start his backup? It's just
Hey, was D Winters in on that last drive when Seattle scored? Because he made some big plays earlier in the game.
I didn't see him after that. I didn't see him late in the game.
He was in on a couple of pretty good.
He was in on
tackles.
the Jair Brown stop also.
Yeah, but I didn't know if he was in there at the end. Why wouldn't he have been out there instead of Campbell?
Good question.
Because Campbell's there too.
Everyone's worst nightmare says
Yeah, but
Larry
you know the
said.
passing. He's horrible pass protection.
Wait a second here. We get this one from him. He says, Larry said the Eagles coach would be fired. Eagles are #1 in their division. LOL. Eagles offensive line is playing great. Lane Johnson's been amazing. Mailata's back, and he's amazing. So anyway, that's probably going to do it for us. A lot of good thoughts, a lot of good comments, a lot of good supers. Thank you to everybody. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Check them out there in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week. Thanks to Better. This live stream sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. Download the app below.
We did hit on one of our better.
Did
lineups.
we? We
Yes,
won?
we did. Purdy longest rush cashed.
Yes.
Geno Smith under 35.5 longest pass cashed.
Wow, look at that. Download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners to get your first deposit matched up to $200. Everyone who does is automatically entered into a drawing to win a free signed Fred Warner jersey. We'll announce the winner at the end of November. It's a great looking jersey. It's autographed by Fred. It's a Niner red jersey in XL. We have it, and we will auction it off later on this month. Guys, final thoughts. Let's go around the room. One last thought before we call it quits. We are an hour and 53 minutes into our live stream, and we're not going to go past 2 hours. So JD and I still have to walk to our cars and then race up the 680 at 100+ miles an hour to see who's got the stronger vehicle. Dan, why don't we start with you, since you're, in a very safe area there in a gated, guarded community with everybody over 55. Give us your final thought.
It's not the team I thought it was going to be. I'm going to have to probably step back and I thought a week or two ago they would be at, I said 10-7. Still have an outside shot at it, but it's going to take some real creativity from Shanahan to get there because they don't have the horses to compete with Bosa out. If Bosa's out, they're going to have to do some real creative things to be in the ball game. I think, like JD said, maybe 5-7, and you come back, get healthy, and maybe they can go 7-7, and then win the last three. Maybe Detroit is not playing for anything. That might be your only hope. I would just say this team, to me, very disappointing. Losing to three weaker, not so great division opponents and losing with leads in the fourth quarter is a sign that something is really wrong in the building.
Really? You think something's really wrong in the building?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think something, whether it's the players have lost, they're too tired maybe for the long runs they've had the last several years, kind of like the Warriors when they went deep into the playoffs and there's a hangover. They just played too many games for too many years. Or if some players just feel like they got their bag and they're just like, hey, I'm good. I'm going to take a year. I don't know. Mentally, something's not right. You can't be losing to teams in your division with leads in the fourth quarter the way they've lost and something be like everybody's dialed in. They're not dialed in.
JD?
Yeah, I think I just think we may look back, Dan, coming off your thought, and say that last year was the peak. That last year was the best shot. It was the most complete team. And when you don't win it in the manner that the 49ers lost it, it's really hard to dial it up again the next year. And so I just think when you look at it objectively, this team this year is not as good. Now, should they be a 9-8 team as opposed to maybe an 11-6 team when they were a 13-14 the last couple of years? And we can debate that. And I think there's a conversation to be had. But, I think it's pretty easy to see that really the last two teams that the 49ers have had, maybe even the last three teams that the 49ers have had, were better teams than this team in 2024. It doesn't mean they can't get on a run, but they really, I think, to keep the fight and the hope alive, have to win one of these next two. And I know everybody's throwing out the Buffalo game because it's Sunday night and they just beat the Chiefs and they look. I mean, maybe the Bills end up winning the Super Bowl. They could. I think they're in a small group of teams that could. So the question that I would have, although I laid out that path, even if they lose the next two, would be, what are you fighting for if you're 5-7, and especially if a couple of these games get ugly? That's my concern for next week and for the Buffalo game as well. It's those two games surrounded by the holiday. This team's really down and thinks they should be a lot better. If you cobble it together for one more fight, and you play a really good game, a better game than maybe you've played the last 2 weeks, and then you somehow don't lose it or you don't win it, like, does the dam just break? And I also wonder, and I'm going to be really looking at it next week in Green Bay. Do they come out and they get smoked in one of these games or both, like that? And that's the kind of thing that would tell everybody, obviously, that they're done. So hope is not lost. I think, though, objectively speaking, to believe that this team was going to be able to compete as consistently at the level that the last handful of teams have, I think it's a little bit unfair in a sense, given some of the players that they've lost, but they still should be beating the Seahawks when they have a lead in the final minute, and the Rams and the Cardinals. And if they had, they'd be 8-2, and it'd be we'd be saying, can they get the Lions? Can they beat Philly? It's just hard to dial it up again, is my big overarching theme. And I think that's led to some of these losses.
JD, let me ask you this, because you've been around them and stuff, and you and Larry, you would know this as well. The team, the manner in which they lost last year in the Super Bowl, not just losing, but several players mentioning we didn't even know the rule for overtime. that if we scored a TD, the game's not over. Do you think there's some type of just like envy? Like they saw how the Chiefs were prepared and they all knew that. And Mahomes, we saw the NFL films, Mahomes running off the field after the coin flip. They want the ball. Can't believe it. They want the ball. And human nature tells me that some kind of doubt has to creep in. Like, why weren't we prepared?
I don't sense that, Larry. I mean, I'll let you speak to it. I don't sense that. I just sense a team that's played a lot of just gauntlet playoff and Super Bowl games. A lot of these guys, I do agree. There was somebody in the chat that I saw pop up with, the thought that, guys got paid and guys held out and the Ayuk thing got really bad and they're a little bit older. And it just, I think there was a little bit more disease of me this year for this team coming off of, and that's fine when you win it, but when you have all that and you don't win it, I think it can become problematic. Like, to me, it's more about all of that offseason stuff and just knowing how this team, to me, went all in the last 2 years. They went all in when they got Christian McCaffrey, and they ran the table after that Chiefs game in 22 and got to Philly. And then they were so disgusted with the fact that they never truly got a chance in the Philly game because Brock Purdy got hurt and they got smoked, that they held it together for an entire offseason and added and ran it back again and went 13-4 again and put themselves in it's really, and got to the Super Bowl and lost in the most heartbreaking fashion you could to the same team for some of those guys that beat them before. To me, when you do that twice, it's just, you can't dial it up and maximize every game and every win and every shred of talent that you have when you are not as talented as you've been in these other prior years. It's just hard to go through the gauntlet to get back to the point where you lost it before. And I just think, it's been a lot of little things that have added up to this team being in the position that they're in.
Yeah, it's if I had all the answers, I would have already said them by now, right? So I don't have all the answers. By the way, somebody asked what kind of weather is going to be in Green Bay next week. I'm looking at the weather on my phone. It says low of 30, high of 44.
So normal cold.
Normal cold.
Summer.
No snow, no sun. Foggy. It said foggy, cloudy, 30 degrees low, 44 high. So that's fine. That's fine. 30 degrees is fine. As far as, it's easy for me to say. I'll be watching in my, Snuggie or whatever. But 30 is not, negative conditions. As far as
great video picture to leave us, Larry, you and your Snuggie.
Yeah. One of those gigantic,
I'll just say my
I don't own a Snuggie, by the way.
My final
ahead,
comment. Ken. Yeah, my final comment. My biggest fear right now is just that
I'll wear a Snuggie.
Is that I don't have a Snuggie for the Green Bay. No, my biggest fear right now is just like what we're seeing is real. Like what just like how the special teams, like what we've, after all these games of bad special teams, it's just a fact that the Niners special teams is bad. We're watching the Niners choke games, not win close games. Their defense is wilting as the game goes on, especially in key game-winning drives. And it's happened so many times that it's not really an anomaly. It's more of it's a reality, and that's just what this team is right now. And that's my biggest fear. And it's going to take a lot for them to buck that trend. I think that they really are going to something's really going to have to change about the way that they're doing things for them to get over this hump. And like I said, it's the witching hour of their season. It's now or never. It's go time. You read the stat before the game, NFL.com. It was if they won this game, it was like a 63% chance that they make the playoffs. If they lose this game, it drops to like 39. So they're in that 39% scenario. It's an uphill battle from here.
Does it remind you last year? Wasn't Buffalo 6-6 last year? And
they didn't win anything.
But they got to the playoffs, though. But they got hot. They won I think they finished either 10-7 or 11-6. I can't remember what their record was. but they did get hot down the stretch.
And they lost a bunch of close games last year too. They lost a game in Philly right after Thanksgiving, and they were 6-6, and they did get hot from that point on.
Yeah.
Last thought I have, I would just say, I'm reading this story, and Fred came on the podium today and he said it's infuriating. Honestly, he said it's not like us, but that's just what we've shown this year. So I guess until we stop doing that, that's who we are. There's a lot of pride in that room. There's a lot of talent in that room. And yet I think they need a little pissed off. They need a little angry. They need a little, hey, we're furious. Hey, let's fight. They're backed into a corner. They have to fight, and we'll see how much fight they have. They're either going to fight and they're going to get to the playoffs, or they're going to wither away, and it's going to be, this season's going to be washed away. So it's go time right now. But the fact that Fred Warner, one of the leaders of the team, said it's infuriating. I'd like to see some guys, I get mad. I'd like to see some of these guys get mad. I'd like to see, there's an awful lot of smiles and happiness around the 49ers. I'd like to see some pissed off guys. I'd like to see a pissed off football team that comes out and really takes it to their opponent and doesn't let up. So we'll see where it goes, but it might just not, to me, they lack speed. They lack speed. They lack speed in the perimeter. They lack speed at linebacker. They lack speed off the edge. They lack speed at tight end. They lack speed at wide receiver. They lack speed. So, and I think it's so. I would point to the personnel side before I'd point to Shanahan. But Shanahan's got to also be accountable. But I'll say this: I don't see a lot of players bailing on him. I don't see a lot of guys saying, "Oh, I don't believe in Shanahan." I think more people questioning Shanahan come from the media and from the fans than in that room. One last super. SJ Braveheart says, it's a joke to blame the defense. This is 2024. I have to score more than 20 points, especially when you get turnovers on your side of the field. The D got the fourth down stop. The offense should have closed it. No doubt. But I think overall, what I would say, I wouldn't blame offense or defense. I would just say overall, they made a bad decision to go after Hargrave, and that was not a good decision on the tail end of missing on 7 number ones. And then you mix in a year like this where you've got a few more injuries and some key guys on the tail end of the Hargrave deal and depleting your depth and missing on 7 number ones. 3 factors that all lead to a less deep roster. Like the Warriors are not great, but the Warriors are deep. Really, 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 really deep. And what are the Niners? The Niners are not great, but the Niners have lost that depth. And so the same way, I think depth is really important in sports. And I think the Niners are not as deep as they need to be, and it's burning them, and they're running out of players. And the Warriors are tremendously deep, and we'll see what direction they go. That's going to do it for us. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Better. Thanks to all of you guys. Thanks to JD. Thanks to Danny. Thanks to Kev. Thanks to Red. JD, when do you appear next on the leader? When do we get to see you next or hear you next?
Tomorrow night, we've got Dubs OT after the Warriors and the Clippers. The Warriors are headed down to LA. I'm actually headed down to LA tomorrow in the morning, bright and early. So I got an early flight at Intuit Dome in Inglewood, the new building right next to SoFi Stadium, the Warriors' first trip down there. So we'll have Dubs OT from Inglewood tomorrow. And then I'm going to be with Greg Silver on Tuesday from 10 to 2. Papa and Silver going to get rolling tomorrow on KNBR. And then Greg had to take the day off. So I'm going to be in with Silver 10 to 2 on Tuesday.
Nice. Danny, when do you go live next on NorCal Sports Network?
We'll be on tomorrow night. I'm hoping maybe I'll see JD at the Wall. Are you going to be in the Wall there at Intuit?
There may be a cameo from the Wall. I may try to shoot a little stand up for social media from the Wall if I can get over there.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. So yeah, NorCal Sports Network will be going live after Warriors and Clippers tomorrow night as well. And catch us then.
Awesome. And Kev, of course, we're putting out all kinds of stuff. We'll be streaming tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. with Damon. Probably streaming tomorrow afternoon in the afternoon with Grant. Catch me at 6:00 tomorrow night on Niners Nightly on KMBR, and maybe even after Monday Night Football with the great Raj. If we move Raj to Monday, to Monday night.
Bless you.
But that is going to do it for us. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to all of you guys. Have a great night. Niners lose, rough one. But hey, fear not. Tomorrow's another day, and we'll be back tomorrow to talk about it. So, for Danny, for JD, for Kev, for Red, for all of you, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you